The night the stars fell silent, my world ended. I was just a boy, hidden in the shadows of our small home, when they came for him. Faceless figures, cloaked in darkness, moving with a chilling grace that defied human nature. My father, a simple man, a blacksmith with hands calloused from honest work, stood no chance. They weren't there to rob or to threaten. They were there to erase. I remember the glint of strange, obsidian blades in a language I didn't understand, spoken in whispers that seemed to drink the very light from the room. And then silence. A silence heavier than any sound. A void where my father's life used to be. They left as they came, like smoke on the wind, leaving me alone with a grief so vast it threatened to swallow me whole. In that moment something broke inside me, but something else was born. A seed of vengeance, dark and relentless, watered by tears and a single burning question. Why? The following years were a blur of orphanages and foster homes, a ghost drifting through a world that no longer felt like my own. The memory of that night was a brand on my soul, the whispers of the assassins a constant echo in my mind. I searched for answers, for any clue, any hint that could lead me to the man who shattered my life. My search led me down dark alleys and into forgotten libraries, chasing whispers and rumors that most would dismiss as folklore. I learned of shadows that walked, of an ancient order that dealt in secrets and death. The more I dug, the more I realized my father was not just a simple blacksmith. He was a guardian, a keeper of a secret so profound that it cost him his life. This realization didn't bring comfort. It only deepened the mystery and stoked the fires of my resolve. I was no longer just a grieving son. I was the inheritor of a legacy I didn't understand, a legacy that had marked me for the same fate as my father. My relentless pursuit eventually led me to a name whispered in fear and reverence, the Shadow Sanctuary. It wasn't a place you could find on any map. It was a myth, a legend spoken of by those who dealt in the unseen. It was said to be a haven for those touched by the darkness, a place where one could learn to command the very shadows that haunted them. Finding it was an impossible task, a journey into the heart of nowhere. I followed cryptic clues, deciphered ancient texts, and navigated treacherous landscapes, driven by a hope that felt more like desperation. After months that felt like years, I found it. Tucked away in a valley, perpetually shrouded in mist, nestled between towering, jagged peaks, was a monastery that seemed carved from the mountain's own dark stone. This was the Shadow Sanctuary. As I approached its gates, a strange energy hummed in the air, a resonance that vibrated deep within my bones. The shadows around me seemed to shift, to lengthen, to welcome me home. Standing at the threshold, I was met not by a guard, but by an old woman, her face a roadmap of countless years, her eyes holding the wisdom of 1,000 lifetimes. She introduced herself as Yuki Takeda, the keeper of the sanctuary. She looked at me, not with suspicion, but with a knowing gaze, as if she had been expecting me my entire life. She told me the shadows I saw, the darkness I felt stirring within me, was not a curse, but a gift, a lineage. My father, she explained, was one of them, a shadow warrior who had chosen a life of peace, hoping to shield his son from the dangerous world he had left behind. But destiny, she said, is not so easily escaped. The power that flowed through his veins now flowed through mine. It was raw, untamed, and dangerous. Yuki Takeda offered me a choice: walk away and live a normal life, forever haunted by the unknown, or step inside, embrace my heritage, and learn to control the power that was my birthright. For me, there was no choice. I stepped across the threshold, and the great doors of the Shadow Sanctuary closed behind me, sealing my fate. My training began the next day, and it was more brutal than anything I could have imagined. Yuki Takeda was a demanding master, her methods ancient and unforgiving. She pushed me past every limit, physical and mental. I ran mountain trails until my lungs burned, meditated in freezing streams until my body went numb, and sparred with seasoned warriors who moved like phantoms. But the true challenge wasn't physical. It was the struggle within. The shadow power was a living entity inside me, a tempest of raw energy. At first, it was disobedient, lashing out at my command. In moments of anger or frustration, darkness would spill from my fingertips, uncontrolled and destructive. I would try to summon a simple tendril of shadow, and instead, the entire training hall would be plunged into an oppressive, suffocating blackness. Yuki taught me that control wasn't about force. It was about balance. To command the shadow, I had to understand it, to accept it as a part of myself, not as an external tool. I had to face the darkness within my own heart, the rage, the burning desire for revenge and find harmony. There were days I wanted to give up. The frustration of failure was a constant companion. The shadows would whisper to me, feeding my anger, tempting me to unleash their full power, to let my rage consume me and seek my revenge without discipline or honor. I saw visions of the men who killed my father, and the darkness within me screamed for their destruction. It was in these moments of near surrender that Yuki's teachings echoed. The shadow is a mirror, John, she would say. It reflects what is inside you. If you are ruled by chaos, so too will be your power. Find your center, your anchor, or you will be lost to the abyss. My anchor became the memory of my father, not his death, but his life, his warm smile, the strength in his hands, the love he had for me. I wasn't just fighting for vengeance. I was fighting to honor him, to protect the legacy of peace he had tried to build. This realization was my breakthrough. I began to see the shadow not as a weapon of rage, but as an extension of my will, a tool for justice. Slowly, painstakingly, control came. I learned to weave the shadows, to shape them into blades as sharp as obsidian, to mold them into shields as strong as stone. I could move unseen through the deepest darkness, meld into the background, until I was nothing but a whisper on the wind. My movements became fluid, my senses sharpened, and the power that once threatened to consume me now answered my call. I sparred with the other acolytes, and where they once saw an unpredictable novice, they now saw a warrior. My shadow and I were no longer two separate entities locked in a struggle. We were one. I learned the history of the Shadow Warriors, an ancient order dedicated to maintaining balance, to protecting the innocent from those who would use the darkness for evil. The very men who killed my father were part of a splinter faction, a cult known as the Obsidian Hand, who believed the shadows should be used to dominate and conquer. My training was not just about combat. It was about philosophy, about understanding the profound responsibility that came with my power. Yuki Takeda taught me that true strength wasn't the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to know when and why. Justice, she explained, was not the same as revenge. Revenge is a fire that consumes everything, including the one who wields it. Justice is a light that drives out the darkness, that restores balance. My personal vendetta had to be forged into a larger purpose. I wasn't just John, the boy whose father was murdered. I was a guardian in the making, a future protector against the forces that prey on the weak. The rage was still there, a hot coal deep inside me, but it was no longer my master. It was fuel, tempered and controlled, channeled into a singular focus. After years of relentless training, the day came when Yuki Takeda summoned me to the heart of the sanctuary, the Chamber of Echoes. The walls were lined with the names of every shadow warrior who had come before. She presented me with a set of armor, dark and silent, and 2 blades forged in the heart of a fallen star, humming with a faint, dark energy. She looked at me, her ancient eyes filled with a solemn pride. "Your training is complete, John," she said. "The boy who arrived at our gates is gone. In his place stands a warrior. Your father would be proud. The path ahead is yours to choose." The Obsidian Hand still operates in the shadows of the world. They believe themselves untouchable. It is time they learned otherwise. Looking at my reflection in the polished surface of my new blade, I saw not just my own face, but the culmination of a long, painful journey. The grief, the anger, the training, the sacrifice it had all led to this moment. I am no longer just the son of a fallen warrior. I am his legacy. I am the justice he was denied. The world outside these misty mountains is unaware of the darkness that festers within it, of the silent wars fought in the alleys and rooftops, but they have protectors they do not know. I will move through the night, a silent guardian, a phantom of justice. The Obsidian Hand took my father from me, and in doing so, they created their worst nightmare. They wanted to extinguish a light, but instead, they ignited a fire in the shadows. My name is John, and I am a shadow warrior. My hunt is just beginning. Thank you for watching my story unfold. If you want to follow my journey for justice, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. The shadows are calling.